What if you could tap into the divine wisdom of angels to manifest miracles in your life? Welcome to the Enlightened Life podcast, where we explore the tools and insights that can transform your reality and awaken your soul's true potential. I'm your host, Scott Allen, and today we're diving into the miraculous power of angelic communication. My guest is the incredible Seph Dietlin, a dynamic thought leader, human potential activator, and a true force for conscious living and personal transformation. As a filmmaker, content creator, certified hypnotherapist, angel psychic communicator, and energy healer, Seph has dedicated his life to empowering others to awaken to their highest potential. He's the author of Ascension with Angels Tarot and has designed powerful courses and events that unlock higher levels of awareness through angelic guidance and the quantum field of intelligence. So grab your favorite beverage and join us as we uncover how connecting with angels can inspire miracles, elevate your consciousness, and lead you to a more fulfilling, enlightened life. Let's get started. Hey, Seph, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I love that introduction. I want to hear how all this works as well as share it with the audience, which is very fun because you definitely make it sound as intriguing as it truly is. And I know that you work in the field of awareness and you know the difference that your life has just by living with awareness and how much more exciting and expansive it is. So I love how you gave it the right address. So thank you for having me.
I don't know enough about angels, and I know this is kind of your thing. I thought maybe we start sort of at the beginning. Can you explain to the listeners who are angels or what are angels? Let's start with that. And how do they operate within our lives to help us manifest miracles?
In my experience, I've come to an understanding of what they are and who they are and how we can use that connection with them to live a much more powerful life. And all of this has to have some potent tangibility in order to actually have some value, if that makes sense. So, the way that I understand the reality that we live in, it's a bit holographic, let's say, as far as that we are the creator of our reality. There is a oneness between ourselves, the creator, and what we would call the angels, which is a band of intelligence that comes from the creator and gives us the guidance that we need to navigate a place that isn't home. And home is a another field of awareness in a different frequency where we originate from, where we are in our fullest and most potent state, one and in unity with creative source. So while we've decided to take a little adventure, I don't know what we were thinking when we decided to do that, but while we decided to take an adventure in a dimension that has its own set of challenges, we also installed a guidance system, which is connection to that source. Now, we have names for angels, and we can give names to angels, and we can individuate them like we do ourselves. But we are also from a band of unity where we are the same being but in a different body, and so too are the angels. So, in much the same way, I can speak to myself, so to speak, as in you, Scott Allen, being me in another body. I can actually speak to Archangel Raphael, who is, in essence, me in a body that is still in the grace of the fullness of the universe and can give me some insight from his perspective that will help nourish and empower my life or heal my life because he has that perspective. But he's also me. And so I say to the audience, you're an angel and own it. And Scott, you're an angel. We're all part of that band of creativity from creator source, which externalized itself. But that first band of creativity was the angels, and they were given to guide us. So where my work comes into potency is that I'm not just here to share how we can communicate with them. I'm here to share how we can get authentic communication from them and then use it as illumination to bring about the best of what we wish to create.
It's always been my understanding that angels have never been human. They've never been here on earth. They've never incarnated. And do you agree with that? I know you say that I'm an angel, you're an angel, but not in the true sense of an angel. Do you would you agree with that, or do you think that we could be?
There's a little bit of both, actually.
Okay.
So there are those in the angelic realm. For example, as we refer to Archangel Metatron is a brand of frequency that's also inhabited a human body and also understands our human journey. So, for example, Archangel Metatron is one that I like to call on when I'm having a struggle as a human, that Archangel Metatron would understand, having been one. For the most part, angels are a band of frequency that aren't presently in this dimension, and they're presently in the dimension that we would call the quantum field or the fullness of the universe, which gives them access to a perspective that can serve us.
So how do they interact with the quantum field of intelligence in order to bring about these miracles and these transformations?
What they actually do is create a frequency upgrade for us or allow us to step into the awareness of a frequency that we hold. And when we communicate with them and we receive their communication, just by doing so and accessing that channel, we are the ones who are in unity, or what we often call alignment, with a high frequency of energy that comes from Creator Source. And Creator Source has an intention to create through us. So we are an extension of Creator Source, and we are here to be imbued with creativity so that we can create with Creator Source. And when we're in that band of frequency, we bring through the creative energy from Creator Source. And so the angels, just by virtue of being in tune with us, naturally tune us into that alignment where we then end up bringing that forth. Now, it doesn't always require the angels to be in that band of frequency. We just have to be in a heart activated space. So I don't care if it's your birthday and you feel very loved today. You're in a creative space. I don't care if you just got reunited with your cousin that you haven't seen for 20 years and you're just fully in love with being in person with each other and your heart is ignited. You are flowing with energy from Creator Source. The angels just give us an opportunity to do it more frequently and habitualize it, and to do it in concert with a resource that we've been given from birth.
So I think it's fascinating because you channel. Do you channel them actually? Are you able to channel and receive messages from them?
I know that there's words that mean certain things to some people that mean certain things to other people. So I like to describe that I have the ability to telepathically communicate with that field of energy and to hear messages that have a lot of specific clarity that end up not only being useful, but then end up creating miracles. So I know the potency of it. So I telepathically communicate with that. We can often use the word channeling, and some people that means one thing, and to some people that means another. But I do know that I don't give my body to another field of awareness or my mind to another field of awareness. What I do is have a conversation with that band or frequency of intelligence, and from that space I receive information as if I'm having a two-way conversation, and then I relay that. That's the way that I like to frame the way that I receive and disseminate disseminate the information that I receive from that.
And I understand that because when I do readings, mediumship readings, I'm a medium. When I do that, it's very much like that. I don't do trance. I don't allow something to come in and speak through me. But and so in that sense, I don't channel them that way. But I do somehow I'm able to retrieve messages and relay them to the people that I'm sitting with. So I'm imagining it's very similar for you.
With amazing specificity. And I love that part
Yeah.
because you're receiving information And you can tune into them in a way where you can know something just through your knowing or through a sense of being tuned in with that. And it's amazingly specific and useful. And without the information that you would have received, you wouldn't necessarily receive or experience the miracle or to be able to co create whatever it is that you've been able to co create.
Right. It's funny because when we started the show, you said, I don't know why we chose to come in at this time. And it's an excellent question. And you think about throughout history, there are many times that would have not been optimal. Funny thing there are lots of times that are not optimal or have not been optimal to be here. So, in your experience, what, if you even have this information, what do the angels say is happening right now? What is happening to our world right now? And why are things so difficult?
Yes. And that is why they came to me or that I invited them in, as well as many other people, because I'm certainly not the only person who somehow or another of the last 20 plus years finds themselves gifted with this gift of being able to talk and receive information from higher dimensions. And that is because there is a huge transformational experience happening in within this reality that basically returns us back to our original state of perfection. So we call it New Earth as some form of nomenclature, but it's really the original Earth, the original reality that we came from, which is non dual and in perfection in every way. And we did make a journey as that one unified being into something that did have duality to make some very potent discoveries about who we are in ways that we wouldn't without that duality. And now that we've gone on our fishing trip and caught our fish, we're ready to go back home in a certain way and to live in the perfection of who we already are.
And don't you feel as well? I've noticed so many people I feel like are coming into themselves in terms of this spiritual awakening. There's a lot of people that seem to be going through that right now. And in terms of if you believe in past lives and future lives, I wonder if many of us are coming into our last lives.
But and the funny thing is there is no time. And that has been revealed, especially with some potent details through Archangel Metatron. And he seems to help me understand that we don't, quote unquote, live our lives in chronological order. So when we go in and out of this dimension, we can live a life in the future and then go live a life in the past because there is no time. It's only a false construct that's here. But we do have an opportunity here to come back home. And that isn't to say that we'll take this or not take this journey again. And it's pretty much in jest that I say, I don't know what we were thinking. But what happens is that, yes, there are a lot of people that are becoming aware of who they truly are and shedding the illusion of who they really aren't. And I do remember some specificity to the prophecies that the angels gave to me when they first came. Because when they first came to me, I didn't think, oh, okay, I'm going to be doing this for my work. I was a successful real estate agent in Southern California, and I just thought, wow, that's cool to get to talk to the angels and get to co create miracles. And I was enamored by it because of my own spiritual curiosity and the discoveries that I made from talking to them. But one of the first prophecies that they gave me about this period that we're living in, they said, everyone will either awaken to who they truly are or they have an agreement to exit the planet at this time. So when we go through this ascension, it may not be a moment that happens all at once, but a lot of people who are unexplainably leaving the planet at young ages or in other stages of their life that seem like, wow, why are they doing that? Is because they don't have an agreement to be here during the transition. And those that do will awaken. And that's how that will sort of slowly evolve to create a world that is full of spiritually evolved people, which in essence is those who know who they truly are, which is a multidimensional being, and not identify with their human specifically. In much the same way I wouldn't identify with my car as being me, it's a vehicle that I ride around Southern California in, but it's not me. Humanity has to, let's say, experience the stretches of inaccuracy of individuality and understand that we're not separate beings, and that what I do that impacts me impacts the world, and what I do that impacts the world impacts me. Because, for example, we live in a world where I can be someone who's a billionaire and I'm a billionaire and you're not. And that's actually not true, because if there is one person in poverty, everyone is in poverty, because we're part of the same collective, and we have a system in that case in which we are not fully ourselves, which would be an actual optimum, like you said, a society that we'd love to be in, which would actually function with correct use of the light. Now, there are other realities in other dimensions that are already doing that as part of that connection with Creator Source. And in some cases, there are people who've had an opportunity to experience those and get glimpses of them in various forms. Elizabeth Clare, for example, during World War One, was taken to a planet Sirius B, where they work with the light in the right way and have a totally different reality that they live in, but they also have access to greater creativity. So even being an individual who has more than everybody else wouldn't even pay off by comparison to living in a reality where the light is being maximized and what it can create for all. And that's what we're moving into in this reality, because we are meant to actually play here as well in these physical bodies. We are meant to actually play with creativity, but also be really connected to love and with each other. I know that sounds idyllic. That is the way we're wired, though. It's our human that's wired a little bit differently, and that's where the conflict is, because who we are is the multidimensional being. And one of the tricks, Scott, and I think this is really helpful to the audience, and this is one of the things that I've discovered from working with people and helping to empower people or facilitating empowerment with others, is that when we become more in relationship with our awareness and live from that perspective that's heart centered, our whole life shifts and it becomes more powerful. And we still might be surrounded by others who aren't living like that, but that doesn't mean it isn't fully available to us. And while we do that, create a trend here where it actually feeds the collective consciousness and it is making and fueling that shift, one of the things that takes place, according to the angels, is that we end up making this change and bringing about all of this change just by embracing this. So even though we live surrounded by something that appears to be its opposite, it's actually fueling this experience that we're supposed to have, or at least that we decided to have.
I often get people asking me in a reading, are they upset with me? I sold their house. Are they upset with me because I threw out their china? And just like they are connected, we talk about them being here. This is an overcoat we wear, right? This is just the outside shell. That's not really who we are.
Yeah,
This is like a shirt you've cast aside. When they are where they're supposed to be, when they go home, they're not connected with any of this at all. It's just something that they don't need anymore. Just all their belongings. And so for these people who are finding their true selves, it's leaving this behind and being able to become the real person that they are meant to be. And none of this really matters anymore.
right. And the pivot that you're pointing out is viewing spirituality from a human perspective as opposed to viewing humanity from a spiritual perspective. And we do have access to our higher self or our higher mind. And we know that we're in access to it when we have an activated heart and we're in a fuller and broader state of awareness. And when we start seeing our humanity or our human experience, when we're in that state, it appears completely different than the other, you know? And just like you, when we serve others, there are sometimes people that will come to us with a sort of a Hollywood version of what it is that we do in this sort of, oh, do you see the spirits and that sort of thing? And it really isn't like that when we're experiencing it. When you're experiencing it in the real way,
Hmm.
then it's completely different than if you're playing pretend with it, right? And what do I mean by that? You know, it's very easy to, let's say, go to, like in Los Angeles, we have uh, Venice Beach, and there's someone who sets up a table with some tarot cards on the boardwalk, and so you get intrigued. You're like, "Ooh, I wonder what they're going to tell me." And they pull a couple cards and they say, "Oh, wow, you must be having a difficult time." And of course, we are all having a difficult time always, right? And then they play it in such a way, and it's like, oh my gosh, somebody put a spell on you, and I can remove it for $1,500. And there are people I've heard of that have taken mortgages on their houses because they believe this stuff, right? And then they'll come to me like for a session, and it's, as you know, um, it's a lot more genuine, but it's a lot more smooth and subtle, I guess you could say, when it comes through the right source. And there's specificity to it for sure. But like you say, when we work with the other side, it doesn't have the same effect as what we're experiencing here. And it is interesting because I do, with hypnosis, I help people connect directly with their loved ones, and they get to find out that their loved ones just love them still. They're not angry with them. They're never upset with them in that way, you know?
Right. So how can the average person who's, they might believe a little bit, but they're unsure, how can they recognize some of these ways that the angels communicate with us, and actually, for that matter, just synchronicities that we all experience in our lives have anything to play in that?
Yes. Yes. And there's nothing average about anyone, as you know. We're all very powerful and important spiritual beings inside human bodies that are connected to the Creator. And that connection with our angels and to receive their guidance is innate, but it does expand with experience. And yes, it will start with synchronicity. And this is the key place where we get to decide if we're on that path or not. Because in the beginning, I teach angel communication. And in the beginning, we'll wonder, wait a minute, was that butterfly from the angels? Was that coin or feather on my path from the angels? Or was it just a coincidence? Was that thing that I just saw a coincidence, or was it from the angels? And to use a concrete example, I have been called to spend a lot of time in Hawaii. And I just got back from Hawaii last week, and I opened up a bank account just to plant seeds of actually having some form of home base there, doing retreats and things like that. And of course, while I was on the phone with someone explaining how I was somehow innately guided to open up a bank account and to begin to establish some residency in Hawaii, I'm sitting at a stoplight and I notice off the left someone is in a truck with the stencil of the Hawaiian Islands and then the HI for Hawaii. Now, that kind of thing will happen all the time. But when we go back and question it, was that really from the angels? Was that really from the universe? And it doesn't matter if you say angels or the universe, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Was that really a sign? And the answer is yes, because what we live in, once you see it as magical, there's nothing but signs. And once we start to trust them, and when they come in, make an agreement that we will automatically assume that it is from the universe. Because I will tell you, the unconditional love of the universe, it's not out to play dirty tricks on us. Okay, so that's one of the things. It doesn't have the malevolence that we experience in humanity. Okay, so when we start to trust it, then it starts to increase. Then we start to get these whole big ideas. And I remember one of them was, and just to use this as a concrete example, I mean, first it started with the synchronicities and the feathers and the coins, which were amazing. And then I started to get these whole big thoughts where I knew something and I just knew that it was true. So one of those times I had come home from an open house, I placed my keys, my car keys on the center island of the kitchen. I was done. I was ready to grab an iced tea. And I hear, oh, no, you don't. Drive to Disneyland, which was about 20 minutes from my house in Southern California. And I was like, okay. And I thought, well, why not? What's it going to hurt? I'll just get in my car and I'll drive. And I got off the Harbor Boulevard exit off of I-5 freeway, where you exit for Disneyland. And I see a woman stranded off to the side. And I think, well, while I'm here, I'm just going to pull off to the side and see if this woman's okay. And I get out of my car, and it turns out, she was stranded. There's no way you can safely get off the intersection. Her phone was dead, this, that, and the other. So I said, hey, just jump in my car. Let's buckle up the seatbelt. She's got a couple kids. Let's call a tow truck. Let's call your husband. Let's get this all taken care of. And so then I merged back on. We got her car towed away and all that other stuff. And afterward, of course, she called me in my office and she said specifically, thanks to you, I believe in angels again. And of course, I never told her that the angels sent me to Disneyland that day, but I knew why they did. That's because they anticipated that woman being there and they sent me there to help. And they helped me to realize how I could tune in with them to be able to get specific guidance, to be able to be helpful or to be their ambassador on earth. So what happens is that it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like this whole Hawaii thing that I talked about, same thing. They sent me on a one-way ticket. They they gave me a date. They said, go to the Big Island. I'm like, okay. And the next thing you know, I created this whole big network of people that I'm already connected to, including someone who had come to an event that I had already done. And a lot of things are paving their way and creating out of expansion because of it. But interestingly enough, they start guiding us into bigger things. But it does start off with trusting the little things first, even if we say, oh, is it or isn't it? And I say, it is.
Even when I do readings, without trust, it doesn't work.
It is a relationship that expands for sure. So it doesn't start off with, the window flinging open and these winged beings that come and speak English or our native language. It does come through this subtle way, and it is a trust relationship that we build with them. And Scott, you're absolutely right, too, because what ends up happening is that we're actually recording in our left brain or our ego mind. We're always recording the things that didn't work out the way that we expected it. But every time when we look at it accurately, when things didn't work out the way we wanted it to, something better happened. And when we do surrender to the guidance and we say, okay, I don't know where I'm going to go, instead of trying to push it and manipulate the world around us as if it's externalized to give us what we want, it doesn't work. But when we say, okay, what is for my highest good right now? And where is my higher self taking me? And like you said, all of a sudden, the block in knowing disappears. And then all of a sudden, it's just this illuminate path. And I'd like to make a concrete example of that too, because recently I'd come back from Europe and I was hanging around Southern California and Arizona. Sedona is one of the places I hang out in a lot to do work. And a friend of mine, out of the blue, calls me and says, oh my gosh, my condo in Sedona is on the market and it's vacant. Feel free to come and stay there for as long as you want. And I was like, oh, I guess that's where I'm supposed to go. So I went there and I had been given this vision of a retreat from the angels, so in which I would bring in other practitioners and basically have this beautiful spiritual buffet that would highly, highly activate the participants. And somehow or another, without effort, that retreat, I didn't see it coming. It all of a sudden came to life. It filled up, and the people are still texting me of the miracles that are created because of that experience. So that's a concrete example of what you say.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
So, what do you think people can do? They're unsure. What can they do to start, working with the angels to help manifest the miracles in their own lives?
First, I would reassure them that that uncertainty is normal. It's not actually seeing what really is. That uncertainty is normal. We have been conditioned by living our lives in the human body, and it's understandable that we may have some resistance to new information because we've believed, there's that word again, we've believed up until now that things are a certain way. And we don't really want to have our reality deconstructed. But when we have leaders ahead of us that have shown us that we can deconstruct our reality and reconstruct it in a way that serves us, that's really helpful. What I would say to those who really desire this kind of transformation in their lives is that there are so many people out there that you may resonate with. It may be me, it may not be, it might be other people who are doing the same work, but find them, follow them. Those people are serving you right now, and you just haven't seen them yet, and you will now that you're open. But if you are in fact open and you are uncertain, just understand that that is actually the normal part of being at that entry portal. And then what you do is you look for leaders, people who are talking about this stuff already. And the people who are serving this information are doing so very generously. And there's so much wonderful information in the mainstream that wasn't available 20 plus years ago when I first started communicating with the angels. And we're lucky that we've evolved to this point collectively. It's really exciting. And so you'll find yourself connected to a whole new group of people that you'll really resonate with. So if for anyone who is uncertain and feels a little lost by that uncertainty, know that that's just part of knocking on the door. And once you start letting your curiosity let you explore into what's available in mainstream right now, you'll find a lot of answers, and check in with your body and see what you resonate with. And whatever you resonate with is right for you at this time. And again, there's so much that's available, and we're so blessed for that reason.
Yeah. And I can tell you from experience that, years ago, I would have never dreamed this. I wouldn't call me a skeptic. I believed in this, but I was skeptic. If you had told me that I was going to do this, I would have been extremely skeptical because it was
Yeah,
not on the agenda at all. And
right?
I didn't have to do anything to make it happen. It just fell in my lap.
It is. Yeah.
Mm.
At, yeah, and it's funny that for years I used to go and see psychics. I wanted to know, what my future was and everything. And I used to get to know some really great and powerful intuitives in that process that were working with light. And they kept telling me, you are as powerful as I am. I'm like, oh yeah, I bet you tell that to all the clients.
Yeah.
And I used to have this one that she called me a prince among angels.
Mm.
And she saw something that I saw, which is my role as an ambassador for the angelic realm before I even saw it. But I thought, nah, not me. I can't possibly have this. I was enamored by her gift, but at the same time, and she was a wonderful gifted reader. She used to get some wonderful, amazing guidance. She knew just how to deliver it, everything like that. But was very interesting because she told me, you're actually just as powerful, if not more powerful than I am. And that was kind of an interesting and bold thing to say. I was like, oh no, I bet you say that to all your clients. And now I reflect on that and I see what she meant by seeing the seeds of whatever it is that we're using now.
Yeah, it's funny you tell that story because I had taken my mother, it has to be 25 or 30 years ago, to see Sylvia Brown. She came to
Oh,
Boston. Do you remember
yeah.
her? Right.
Oh,
And
of course.
we went into this big convention center and somehow she caught me and she said, "You are psychic." And I looked at my mother and said, "She is psycho," because there is none whatsoever that she's accurate. But I mean, like,
Uh-huh.
here we are, 25, 30 years later, and I'm doing the work. I just don't know. It just kind of happened. When we talk about this and where we're going and the path that we're all on, how do you think angels work with us without interfering with our own free will?
Yeah. Well, pretty much we get to tap into their guidance, and it's our choice whether we take it or not, right? It's our choice whether we resist it or not. You get to a certain point where you know the price tag that's associated with not listening to their perspective because they're just offering you a viewpoint of what's for your highest good, this or not this, or this or not this, or not this or this. And you can still choose to do whatever you want to or not want to do. But you'll always eventually learn the price tag that's connected with going the opposite direction of the path that they're illuminating, because they're not forcing anyone to go down any path or do anything that they don't want to do. They're just illuminating what it is that we already want that's for our highest good. And that's why when they give us guidance, they just give us guidance in a loving way and say, hey, there's this that's available to you. And if you go there, things start to unfold, sort of like the Hawaii story. I just had a one-way ticket to go there. Imagine that, an island in the middle of the Pacific,
Right.
and not knowing anybody. And I just went there knowing that I had the angels, and I didn't have a return ticket, and I had accommodations, for a certain period of time in a rental car. But I was like, whatever it is, they're going to guide me, and I trusted them. And it turns out, I have a whole community there, and they knew what was waiting for me there, which is why they insisted that I go. But I knew that I was going to go. People asked me why I was going. I said, I don't know. And they're like, well, why are you going then? I said, because the angels told me to. Well, that doesn't make sense. Well, it does in my world, and miraculous things always happen because of it. But we end up knowing the gifts and the miracles that come when we do take guidance from the angels or the universe or whatever you like to name that source of guidance to be.
So what do you think people can do to begin working with angels?
Literally just ask and be open and just observe as signs and synchronicities and things come. Keep track of them. I tell people when I teach them, make a miracles list, which is just something as simple as going on our phones. We have those notepad lists, or that's those sticky note lists, right? Where we can label them. Label one of those miracles. You can name it miracles, you can name it signs or synchronicities, you can name it magic, whatever you want. And when something magical occurs, write it on the list, even if it's just a brief thing, right? You know, I remember I was being guided to take a certain job at a certain place. And this was in between my acting career and doing this full time. I was being guided to move out of Los Angeles back to Orange County. And I was being guided to go sell cars for BMW. And there were two dealerships in Orange County. So I had those in mind. And I was like, well, how do I do that? Because I got the guidance, but I trusted the angels. And out of the blue, I got guided to call a friend of mine who's like a sister to me and say, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? She goes, not only do I love it, but one of my best friends is the sales manager at Irvine BMW, which was one of the ones that was on my list of what had felt guided to. No resume, no nothing. One phone call, an interview later, and all of this happens. And I use that as a wonderful way to concretize what they can give us in that guidance. Because in that case, yes, I did hear their guidance to go work there, but I could have gone the path of making a resume and hoping I had it right and putting an application on a website and waiting 10 days for an interview and this and that and the other. But instead, I heard a piece of guidance that I had no idea was related to that. And the next thing you know, I had what I like to call a hidden portal of manifestation, which is very often, of course, the angels will guide us to do something and we think we're doing it for another reason. And that's another way that they'll guide us. Like, hey, drive to Disneyland. Okay, why not? You know? Yeah, let's see what's there. And we get a certain curiosity because this is, again, a reflection of your question about how we can start to do it. When you get an inner nudge to do something, and especially if it's no skin off your nose, do it. Make it an adventure, right? And I thought, what is this? A gallon of gas, right? And I had an annual pass to Disneyland, so if I wanted, I could have just gone to the parking lot and walked around the park myself. But instead, I ended up finding that I was there for another reason. And if I go with a sense of curiosity, non attachment to what it is, non judgment, the next thing you know, boom, magic shows up. And it always does. And that's what I keep track of on that list, that miracle list. And just so you know, full disclosure, it's not something I do meticulously, but it's something I go on and off of doing. But it does actually start to fuel more miracles for showing up.
Well, and I think it's not always instantaneous too. I mean, this fairly instantaneous for you, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen in 10 minutes. And I'll give you an example. I grew up as a funeral director. There was no reason I should have been a funeral director. My parents weren't funeral directors. I had no connection to it at all. But somehow I knew at 14, 15 years old that this was going to be the path I took. And it was. And I did that for over 30 years. I was painfully shy as a child. Funeral business helped, but I remember at one point meeting someone who was involved in regional theater and said, "You should come with me. You should come, and I'm going to audition for a show. You should come with me." Oh, no, I could never do that. Oh, come on, give me a break. So I went with him, and I ended up getting cast in the show. And I did that for almost 30 years, 25 or 30 years, because I kind of got the bug and I got hooked. I ended up doing a couple of commercials and a few other things.
Hmm.
And I went from this painfully shy kid to someone who worked with people who were grieving and was okay standing in on a stage in front of 600 people and whatever else I was doing on the stage, singing or whatever. Now, as I sit and I look at this, here I am still working with people who are grieving. And I had this woman, she was a psychic, and she said, "You're going to be on TV someday." I'm like, "No, I'm not. There's no chance. There's no chance. There's absolutely no chance." Well, I wanted to have some filming done at one of my public demonstrations because I wanted to make a reel of clips.
Hmm.
And so I called around to some people and I don't know. And there was one guy that does this, and they gave me his number to kind of connect with him. He came out with his team, and I thought, well, this is really odd because it was like this truck with lighting and sound, and I mean, like I'm just get someone to stand there with an iPhone. You know what I mean? That's all. That's all I was expecting at the show. I actually brought someone through for him, and at the end of the show, he said to me, "I don't know if you know anything about me, but I'm director of photography for this show on Amazon, and there's a, it's, we look for mediums, and would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I didn't hear anything for a while, and then I got a call. Would you be interested in doing a show? Doing an episode. So I went out and I filmed the episode, and then I did another, and I did another, and I did another. And then all of a sudden, now I'm scheduled for season two, which films in February. But I'm thinking, how is this all coming to play? And when you look back at your life, you can always see that they were putting you exactly where you needed to be because every little thing gave me experience working with people who are grieving, standing on stage, not being afraid of my own shadow, being able to do a show like this, talk to people that I've never met before, and being able to go on TV and do this other show. And none of this. I mean, if they had thrown me in this at the beginning, I don't think I would have been prepared for it at all.
Right.
They had to set me up. So this was years of putting me on the path, I believe.
Yes, and I do hold that we're the ones who created the narrative, if you will, of the journey that we travel. They just the ones that know what that is to make sure that we get nudged in the right direction, cue us on our lines, so to speak. Yeah. And it is interesting because a lot of times we don't know in what form things are going to manifest. And so, I got guided by the angels into the television industry as well. So I got guided into film school. The next thing you know, I started doing some acting. That was another thing that those psychics kept saying. They saw me on TV and things, just like what you said. And I was like, yeah, right. You say that to everyone. And then next thing I know, I'm driving to the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, right? And I'm remembering them saying this to go be on a sitcom. But there is this wonderful way. And even now, I haven't done anything that would be notable with it, but I am a member of SAG after. And I think, well, I wonder why there's got to be some other piece that comes into play later. And you just never know what it is. And you get to be okay with letting these pieces be unresolved until it's time for them to be resolved. And I think that's a potent conversation for this time in human history because so many people are experiencing pain from feeling what they would identify as stagnancy because they see themselves as something bigger and more expansive, which you are. people in the audience listening to this. You are. You see yourselves that way, and you know that you have the capacity for a greater expression than the mundane sort of wheel that you're on, and you crave something more. And it will come, it is coming, but it happens over a series of time. And right now, we're connecting with each other to validate each other so that we have the belief that's fuel to bring it in. And I have to say this again for people that are listening to this, because this is for them, is that the whole idea is that if you are one of those people, which a lot of people who are listening to this would be, is the sense of feeling incomplete with your journey and you're not where you want to be. That's perfect. We all are
Right.
in this space of continually evolving and finding out what that is and discovering it and being okay with where it is for right now. And then understanding, though, that there is still something that's connected. Like I said, being in these meat suits, we've been conditioned to believe that we're in a sort of antithetical relationship with reality, where reality will either give us what we want or not. And if we want to push it even harder, we're going to get it. We're actually graduating into a whole different level of relationship where we realize it's a projection of us. We're doing the work from within, but we're getting comfortable in those new shoes, so to speak, of relating to reality from that perspective. And this is just the process. And once we get there, whatever it is that you feel that you have the capacity to do that really matches your dynamic blueprint, you absolutely will do it. You didn't come here not to do it.
Seth, I've really enjoyed this, and I may need to have you come back for part 2 someday because I feel like we've only just skimmed the surface of where we could go with this. But I want to give you, we are coming near the end, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell people about yourself and where they can find you if they want to book a session with you and anything
Yeah.
else you'd like them to know.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, you can just go to my site, which is talktomyangels.com. That's myangels.com. And from there, I do offer an angel communication course, and you can sign up for the wait list or get in touch with me directly. There's a contact form there, as well as book a session. I do hypnotherapy with the angels. We visit the Akashic records. We get to communicate with the angels in session as well. Or I do readings where I just telepathically communicate from the angels. And that's a wonderful place where people can get in touch and share where you are in your journey and see how it is that we can make a difference in the world.
Great. And I also want to say too, because I noticed this, that Seth has his own Ascension with the Angels Tarot deck. And
Yes.
you can sign up for updates on his workshops and events on his website. And I'll put that in the description here. So if anybody's looking for it, you don't have to remember. I'll put it in the description so you can find it. But from what I can see, it's a space dedicated to manifesting abundance, fostering spiritual connection, and embracing the transformative power of the angels. Seth,
Yes.
really, honestly, I thank you for sharing your incredible insights and wisdom with us. The idea of working with angels to manifest miracles is really, to me, very, very inspiring. And I think it's something that we can all use in our life. And while you are online, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spirit Talk Live with Scott Allen, and on Facebook at Spirit Talk Live for more inspiring content and deep dives into spirituality, mediumship, and personal growth. You can also visit my website at www.mediumscottallen.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter, Soul Awakenings. It's filled with insights, spiritual guidance, and updates on all my public events and private sessions. Plus, if you're in Naples, Florida area, look for me there in late January. Details will be posted to my website very shortly. I would love to connect with you in spirit. Oh, in person, not in spirit. Now that was a
Maybe
bit of a faux
both.
pas. I would
Both.
I would love to connect with you in person. Thank you so much for tuning into the Enlightened Life podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, the miracles you seek are just a whisper away when you open your heart to divine guidance. Until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep living your enlightened life. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.